in the house of the Lord. And that's why there wasn't any reason to fast, and that's why there wasn't any reason to weep. Clean up. He's with the Lord, and you'll be there too soon. Now, I want you to turn a few chapters over to 2 Samuel 18 because I want to show you a contrast. This wasn't the only child David had. He had another son whose name, Absalom, is associated with a distastefulness. Absalom. Absalom was an adult son, a grown son. Now, you remember that Absalom tried to pull a coup on his father. That's the worst, isn't it? Your own son leading a revolution. I mean, it was a real tangled mess. You can read the prior chapters. David was cursed and all kinds of things. And Absalom was running around the country trying to gather a band of soldiers to himself to go and knock off the palace. He actually developed a conspiracy and chased David right out of Jerusalem. Here's his own son trying to kill his father. And this is the worst of sons. This is no tender little baby held in the arms. This is a wicked, wretched, ugly, selfish, murderous, plotting, conspiring son. This is a father's worst nightmare. Wretched son. Sought to kill his father. Came after him to that effect. However, we find in chapter 18 that Absalom ran into a problem, literally. Verse 9, he was riding on his mule. Mule went under the thick branches of a great oak, and his head caught fast in the oak. Folks, if you're riding a horse through the woods, duck before the tree appears. Absalom didn't duck, and his head wedged in a V in the tree. And he was hanging there, and the mule kept going. And somebody saw it and told Joab, who was with David, I saw Absalom hanging in an oak. Joab said to the man who told him, Now, behold, you saw him? Why then did you not strike him there to the ground? And I would have given you 10 pieces of silver and a belt. Every man needs a belt. The man, we don't know who he is, the man said to Joab, even if I should receive 1,000 pieces of silver in my hand, I'm not going to put my hand against the king's son. You think I'm going to kill the king's son? I don't know how the king is going to react to that. For in our hearing, the king charged you and Abishai and Ittai, saying, protect for me the young man Absalom, protect him, protect him. You know, it's so ridiculous. You think about the story. David was always saying that, don't let any harm come to Absalom. Everybody around David is saying, you got to be crazy. The guy's trying to kill you. He's leading a coup against you. He's conspiring and plotting against you. And you're going around saying, please protect him, please protect him. Don't let anything happen to Absalom. So this poor man says, I don't care how much money you give me. I'm not about to kill Absalom. King finds out I've killed Absalom. I got some problems. So in verse 15, Joab had a plan. He got 10 young men to kill Absalom so they could sort of spread the blame. And they killed him. Now, verse 32, the Cushite messenger comes, and David says to him, hey, how's Absalom? How's Absalom? Is it well with Absalom? And the Cushite answered, let the enemies of my lord the king and all who rise up against you for evil be as that young man. May everybody else who's against you be like Absalom. Well, he knew what he meant. May all your enemies be killed the way he was killed. Now, here's the second son who's dead. And the king was deeply moved. He went to the chamber over the gate, and he what? He wept. And he said as he walked, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would I had died instead of you, oh, Absalom, my son, my son." Then it was told Joab, chapter 19, "Behold, the king is weeping and mourning for Absalom." This is the exact opposite. He stopped mourning when the baby died. He started mourning when Absalom died. What's the difference? He knew the baby was in the presence of the Lord. He knew Absalom was not. In that first son, there was hope of a reunion. In the second, there was horror. No sorrow for the death of the first. Almost unrelieved sorrow in the death of the second. 1 Kings chapter 14. 1 Kings chapter 14. This is another one of these very important passages that speaks to the very issue, not of innocence or ownership, but of actually being with God in heaven. Being protected by God from judgment. King Jeroboam was very wicked. King Jeroboam did what a lot of other kings did. He just multiplied idols. He had all kinds of false gods, false priests. He was an idolatrous king. And he really kind of sort of duplicated the worship of the golden calf that the Jews had sort of invented at Mount Sinai during the Exodus. And it was under Jeroboam also that they offered their children on the altar to their idols. So because of this wickedness, God says to Jeroboam, "Your dynasty is cursed." Pick it up at verse 10. God says, you've made verse 9, you've done more evil than everybody before you. You've gone and made for yourself other gods, molten images to provoke me to anger. You've cast me behind your back. So behold, verse 10, I'm bringing calamity on the house of Jeroboam. I'll cut off from Jeroboam every male person. They're all going to die. Bond and free in Israel. I'll make a clean sweep of the house of Jeroboam as one sweeps away dung until it is all gone. Pretty severe language. The dynasty of Jeroboam is to be eliminated. Anyone belonging to Jeroboam who dies in the city, the dogs will eat. The great desecration in society was not to have a proper burial. Anybody in the house of Jeroboam who dies, any male, and they're all going to die, leave in the streets for the dogs to eat. Only in modern times have dogs been domesticated. They were always curs. They were always scavengers, a sort of wild, eating whatever they could in the streets. He who dies in the field, the birds of the heavens will eat. Let the vultures tear their bodies up. Don't bury anybody from the house of Jeroboam. Let it be made known that God has placed a curse upon them in that fashion. Now you arise, verse 12, go to your house. When your feet enter the city, the child will die. There's a little child in his family. And all Israel shall mourn for him. Look at this. And bury him. For he alone of Jeroboam's family shall come to the grave. Listen to this next statement. Because in him something good was found toward the Lord God of Israel in the house of Jeroboam. This is a little child in the language, the original language. Every male in your family is going to be desecrated, eaten by dogs or vultures. But that little child is to have a decent, respectful burial. Why? Because in him there is something good toward the Lord God of Israel. And what is that good? It's not righteous merit, but it is this. He was the only one who had not knowingly, willfully rebelled against God. It's a wonderful text, isn't it? God says, you treat that little life right. Something good in that life. Not enough to earn salvation, but there's no willful rebellion against me. Another indication of God's special favor and care